Hi there. Welcome to OnlineVisas.com, the immigration show. I'm your host, Dave Kelso, here with CEO of OnlineVisas.com, John Veely. John, how are you today?
Hi, David. I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, I've got some things. I've been reading the news lately. It seems like the tech industry in the United States is on fire lately. Wow. I was reading a new survey that the tech industry is the number 2 economic driver in the United States. Mm-hmm. I was also reading that unemployment just yesterday, the numbers came out. We are at virtual total employment in the United States.
Right.
But the H-1B or tech workers situation for the tech industry is not as healthy as it should be, because it seems to me we need to recruit a lot of people. Now, there are a lot of, I know you do a lot of work with the tech industry.
Yes.
And I know that there are a lot of visas for the tech industry. Can you start me with a little bit of the background and what are some of those visas?
Well, visas for the tech industry is divided almost like visas are for across the board. But let's talk about them. We'll put them in 3 chunks, right? Okay. So there's the H-1B, which is for professional workers. Now, those can be computer engineers, architects, developers, those types of people that are needed to have a degree to do this technical knowledge, right? Then the green card that they go to is typically the labor certification driven EB2 or EB3. Okay. EB2s are for advanced degree professionals, people with more than 5 years experience, and those who are internationally recognized as exceptional. The EB3 can be skilled or unskilled, so if they have a mere bachelor's degree, they can fit in that category. The labor cert, and we'll talk about what it takes to do that. There's an entire process of recruitment. The other section we can talk about, or another section we can talk about, is the extraordinary ability folks. Those are the O1s, and they lead to the EB1-1 extraordinary ability green cards. Okay. And then the third section, or the next section after that, we could talk about is the L1. Those are for multinational companies to send their executives, managers, and specialized employees. And the managers and executives lead to the EB1-3 for multinational executives and managers. Then after that, there's investors. So people who want to invest in tech companies and live in the United States. So there's the E2 visa for certain countries, and then there's the EB5 to investor visa as well. So we'll break it down into those, and we'll talk about the issues, strategies, and winning arguments for that.
Some of the good parts and hard parts of that. Now, it seems to me that that's a long list of visas available for the tech industry. Sure. There's a lot to that, but I was reading that the tech industry in the United States is expected to have an employment growth of up to 13% by 2026, and that's outpacing employment growth in all the other sectors combined. So you've got to be really busy. Which one of those categories that you just mentioned are you spending the most time in? And let's start there.
Well, it's funny that you say that. So the demand is massive. We have created governmental intrusion into the ability of American companies to hire foreign workers in a couple of different ways, right? So the H-1B has a numerical cap, right? There are only 65,000 H-1Bs available for university graduates.
How many applications do we get a year?
Hundreds of thousands. So we have a lottery system, and it's so bizarre that you have to apply for the visa. You can apply for the visa 6 months prior to a start date. So our dates are based on the fiscal year, which is October 1st. So on April 1st, and the regulations say it has to stay open for 5 days, hundreds of thousands of H-1B visa applications go in. Right.
Sounds like a miserable work week for somebody.
Well, it's sort of like the immigration attorney's version of being an accountant with April, right? We all get very busy, and we put them all in. But it's very frustrating because you have to anticipate you're going to hire somebody at least 6 months before you hire them. It's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of time. And then there's a lottery, and that lottery was about 44% last year, right, of the people that just to get through the lottery. And they don't get the visa if they get through the lottery. Then they adjudicate. And the adjudications of the H-1Bs have become much tougher from the last administration.
So if you make it through the lottery, you're not the visa. We're just going to hear your case.
Right. We'll adjudicate it then. So the adjudication became a lot harder. And the statistics are kind of all over the place, but one of the biggest jumps I saw was from some numbers in 2016, the last year of President Obama. There was an 88% approval rate for H-1Bs. Mm-hmm. In 2017, it dropped to 59%.
Yes.
We saw it go back up a little bit after that, but a lot of people were scared to do it. We saw a lot of gotcha types of adjudication going on. Lots of things that were thrown at all of us trying to do these with surprises, right? So, for example, on March 31st of the first year under the Trump administration, a memo came out. So March 31st is the day that you have to send
before you have to file.
Well, the day you have to file, because you want it there on April 1st. So no, and it was a very innocuous memo that said that a new regional center was going to adjudicate it. They wanted to put a memo out, and they saw that statistics said that computer programmers didn't all have university degrees. So here was, one of the base types of jobs in the computer industry. They said, well, may or may not be an H-1B. Well, we scratched our head, well, what does that even mean?
Right.
And so we didn't see it until we started getting these things called requests for evidence, that are these issues where immigration takes some sort of question about the visa, and you have to answer that.
Want to know a little more.
Right. How they used that issue was really around what the programmer was going to get paid, or really it went to all different professions, right? Any of them. And so they started looking at the wage level. So there's a thing called prevailing wage. And there are 4 levels in the prevailing wage. This is one of the issues on the H-1B adjudication. And so what they said is that the Department of Labor said that this is a level 1 wage, and it looks like your jobs are too sophisticated for a mere level 1 wage, and then they were denying cases based on that. So, what we did and other adjudicators did, we had to figure this out while we're going. Like, there was no recipe for this, there was no experience on it. Was we went back and we said, look, the Department of Labor said these people met the prevailing wage. It's not immigration's job to go in and question any of that. They met it, and that's it. We used experts to come in and discuss it. We used analogies that a brand new doctor was going to come in as a prevailing wage as a doctor. It didn't mean he couldn't do the job, or she couldn't do the job as a doctor. There's a lot of these different analogies came out, and we had some really good success rates on those, and we kind of figured that out. But they started changing the way whether a job was H-1B applicable under analysis of a thing called the OOH, the Occupational Outlook Handbook, right? So we used to use a different database called ONET, and then they said, well, no, it's only OOH. ONET doesn't work anymore. And of course, there was no discussion of this is what we think we're going to do, which is typically how you change regulations, right? So now we're on a different database, and so there's a lot of change going on, right? So figuring out which jobs meet it, getting better at what we do, playing chess with the government on trying to get these things through. And so, what a lot of us did is we looked at denials from other attorneys, other companies. I was dealing with a tech association, IT Serve Alliance, and asked for, let's get all the denials from various companies, various lawyers, and spread it out. We saw there were 5 reasons that immigration was denying cases. And luckily, when we figured out some strategies, we got to a 95% approval rating the next year. And really only lost a couple, and that was based on one of the other issues, which is third company processing, right? And what that means is in the tech industry, there are companies that will hire and train people and then help them go into a company like maybe Apple or Microsoft and say, okay, this person's going to go in for a small time to help with this situation. The companies like it. There's a lot of need for them.
I don't work for Microsoft, but I work for the company that works for Microsoft.
Right. And so, the USCIS started making that more difficult for these staffing companies, consulting companies, to be able to place people. Were they really the employer? Were they not? That third company processing was a big issue, and how to prove they had that, and there was a lot of issues. So we worked with a lot of tech companies to help them sort of redefine who they were, what their day-to-day documents looked like, to show that they were actually in control of their employees and had satisfactory supervision of them, things like that. And so these are the sort of issues that companies are having to deal with. And what's interesting, and I make this analogy a lot in talking to tech companies, is that if you're in an industry and the government changes the regulations for your industry, you go with it. Say you're in the petroleum industry and they say, instead of drilling like A, you need to drill like B.
Sure.
Okay, then it may cost some money. You may have to retool things like that, right? Well, what happened to the tech industry is the immigration industry changed, right? And so companies that were not maybe the petitioner of the H-1B, but the third-party user, they didn't know that. They didn't know what to do about that. They're not comfortable with this sort of stuff. So we've had to do a lot of education with companies on how to deal with the governmental regulation changes in immigration, right, to help them get through this process. So that has been the battle lines have been in the H-1B, right? Lots and lots of changes in the H-1B. It's not the only ones, but that's been a big one.
H-1B approvals are going down across the board.
Big time.
My question is these highly skilled, degree or not, tech workers that the world is driving on right now. The world is code. If they're not coming here and the companies that need them here can't get them, are the companies that need them leaving, or are the workers going to work for other companies in other countries?
All of the above. You know, India is glad to share its great workers with us. There's lots and lots of Indians in America, and Chinese and Iranians, and a lot of folks that have good STEM backgrounds, STEM, science, technology,
engineering, and math.
Right. So the STEM workers, we need them in our, to prop up this industry that's on fire, right? And so if you can't bring the workers here, the companies aren't going to stop working. So India is benefiting as a country, massively. There's a lot of growth over there of American companies going to India and setting up campuses there.
Because they can get the workers here, they're going to bring the work to the workers.
Right, and they're able to do that work for less. And I mean, what's really ironic about this is that the administration that's saying we've lost all our manufacturing jobs, we need to bring our manufacturing jobs back, are making it very difficult to keep the tech jobs in America.
That drive some of the manufacturing jobs.
Well, look, here manufacturing is the deal of who can do it the cheapest, right? I mean, we've seen it. America after World War II did a lot of manufacturing. Japan, when it rebuilt itself, did a lot of manufacturing. China did a lot of manufacturing. North Korea wants to get into manufacturing. Vietnam, those sort of things. If you can pay people $1 a day, you can get the manufacturing jobs.
Right.
That's not what we're about in America. But here's the hottest industry with high-paying jobs. Right? Really high paying jobs. And for every H-1B, it's creating anywhere from 2 to 7 jobs for Americans here. Right? So we're pushing these jobs someplace else. We're losing not just that job, but that person's manager, the executives, things like that. And we're begging American companies to send their jobs overseas or forcing them to. That's what's been happening. That's the underbelly of it. It shouldn't be harder. It should be easier. But it is harder. So, I mean, creating these strategies. So that goes into the green card, right? And so this was the section 1. So the green card for the H-1B style worker is either the EB-2 or EB-3.
Sure.
And
exceptional ability.
Well, exceptional ability for the EB-2, which it also can be an advanced degree. Right. And those are folks that, master's degree, PhDs, and things like that. And they that's one of them. And then they in the EB-3 go through the labor certification process. This is a process where an American company has to recruit in 5 different manners. Right, you need the largest newspaper in the metropolitan statistical area. Like
they want to make sure the company is trying to hire American workers before they go overseas.
They have to prove it
that they have tried diligently to hire an American.
5 different, very specific manners. There's a really specific way that the jobs need to be advertised. They can't be tailored. What tailoring means is that I say I need to hire somebody in a blue jacket and a green shirt wearing glasses, right? Happens to have your exact name, right, or speaks your language. So it needs to be...
I got a job.
Right. It needs to be where it's similar to what the industry typically requires. There's like 3 or 4 different things. There's a thing called an SVP rating. That's a specific vocational preparation. That may say for a computer engineer that's either a bachelor's plus 2 years in experience or a master's degree. That might be the SVP of that particular type of thing. So they'll also look at how has the company recruited in the past. Have they always said it's a bachelor's degree, now all of a sudden they want 10 years experience, right? And then the third thing is how does the industry generally do it? You can look at want ads for other companies. So we're looking at all this, and it's like walking a tightrope.
Yes.
How can we not make it tailored? How can we put that advertising out there and see if an American comes forward? Now, if an American or Americans come forward, or even green card holders, the company doesn't have to hire that person, but they can't hire that foreign national. Or they can hire all of the Americans and green card holders that come forward, and then also hire the foreign national. So there's a lot that goes into that that process. It's lengthy, but we've seen some priority dates get a little bit faster. That means the waiting lines have been a little bit less for some countries, but for other countries like India, which is a big, and China, which have a lot of people coming in the tech industries, are very, very long. We're looking at least 10 years to get through that process. Now, if you're going through that process and you file it before the end of your 5th year on the H-1B, you can continue to extend the H-1B out in perpetuity. But then that sort of creates, people have to stay in the same company, things like that. It's tough. But they put some things in where you can have some mobility.
Right.
Under the Clinton administration, you can move from company to company, but you kind of have to start the labor certification program all over again, advertise again, maybe somebody comes forward this time. So those are those visas and stuff like that. I'll quickly bang through the others. So the O1 and the EB1 are extraordinary ability. We see a lot of that in the tech industry.
Okay.
And we see a lot of it in Silicon Valley, right?
Sure.
So
There's some extraordinary abilities in Silicon Valley.
There surely are, and so I've had a great deal of experience with folks that may be working at really great companies like Microsoft, and they have a think tank called Fuse Labs, right, where the best and the brightest go there, and they have a Bill Gates award for who comes up with the best ideas. These best ideas come from their employees.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, a guy that was in there from China was like that, and they were doing the EB3 for him. So he at that time, because he was from China, was looking for a very long time. I did the EB1 for him. We got his green card in about 6 months. And then since that time, he created like 4 companies in his first year. So he became a job creator.
Yeah, he did.
And he was stuck working, in a company and really needed to be out there doing those things. So that's really cool way to do it. There's a lot of technique around it.
That's where your experience, 26 years as an immigration attorney, and solid gold Sports Illustrated Visa brief covers comes in.
Well, it does help, right? And so we use experts to evaluate it. We just did one in virtual reality, right? And so there's some real niches that you can become very great at. And it's a challenge to show somebody who's brand new at something has become one of the best in the industry. But you can define what that industry is.
Sure.
There can be a lot of press and exposure and patents and other things that come out. So we do a lot of that. The EB1 is the green card that comes out of the O1. O1s can be extended kind of as long as you're working in the industry. The EB1s typically have a faster time, but there's been so much movement into the EB1 category, they actually have a backlog now of them, and that's really meaning in most countries in the world, that's about a year and 3 months before you can file the second part or the adjustment of status, and even longer for India and China. And then the next one I'll talk about is the L1 and the EB1-3. These are for multinational executives and managers. Some things and tricks about that are difficult with companies that are owned by 100% by somebody. Immigration has pushed back and said that those aren't employees because they can't be fired. So, we work with them to create...
It kind of makes sense, though.
It does. But if you can create a board of directors or have some investment documents that indicate that somebody other than yourself can make a decision to determine your employment, those are things we do to fix on those strategies. We have these discussions every day on people that want to move their companies to America. And really it needs to have 3 tiers of employees, meaning executives, managers, and workers. You can't have a company of 1. You really can't even have a company of 3. You can't have 1 executive, 1 manager, and 1 worker. Why would you need to tell the manager to tell the worker what to do? So making those companies large enough, making sure they have leases in the United States to do business before they come up, make sure they have business plans that are written to the matter of hoe standard, which is a case that says what they need to go into it. We inherit a lot of cases where the business plans are not matter of hoe compliant, that there's not enough employees and those sort of things. So the strategy around how to bring your company to America is really critical for the L1. And then once that international company's existed for a year, then you can go to the EB1-3 to get the green card. So that can be a way to do it. Quickly going from that to the E2 treaty investor. There are 33 countries, about to be 34 with New Zealand, that can invest into a U.S. company. $100,000 investment and 50% ownership. Will get you an EB2. That with a business plan and a corporation, you've got a company in the United States, a business plan to run it, and a visa to do so. So we help people on those a lot, and then so that can sometimes turn into the EB5, which has either a $500,000 investment requirement, or $1 million, depending where it is, and that has been a law that's been in flux. It's been sunsetting out and then being re-upped and stuff like that for a while. They want to raise the amount of that investment, which doesn't really make a lot of sense because both the investors and the people who are receiving the investment like the smaller amount to be able to get in, and it would just run people out of the situation. So that's really visas for the tech industry. Those are the various ones. We need them really badly now to continue to keep our mantle of top in the world at this, but we can lose that lightning in a bottle.
Yes, we can.
Silicon Valley is a massive place, and it's a great place, and the environment there is fantastic. But so is Boston with the universities and money around that, and of course New York has its hand in there, Chicago, and Texas has been doing some great things, but it can go someplace else.
Sure.
India could be that new leader.
Vancouver's a great city too.
Well, it's just on the, right there.
Right.
So Canada has had a huge increase in visas and in immigration, like a 200% increase in immigration, based on how difficult we've made immigration in our country in the last year.
Now, if a tech company owner or a tech worker wanted to come here to the United States and bring their company here and employ Americans and make our economy grow, how would they get a hold of you, John Veely, CEO of OnlineVisas.com, to lay out a strategy session? How do we get this ball rolling?
Yeah, well, OnlineVisas.com is a great place to go.
Right.
Very excited. We have almost 2,000 people a day coming to our site. We're fielding about 20 to 30 questions. There's a great chat service on there that they could just go through that process, and then we could have a strategy session for them. I'd love to sit down and talk to them about what they're doing, how they're doing it. I've got a best-selling book on H-1Bs. Glad to send them out a copy of that, and that breaks down a lot of different types of things that you can do in that particular visa. But we talk about that stuff every day, kind of like you and I are right now.
Right.
And would love to do that. You can also reach me at my email, jon@veelylaw.com, VELIELAW.com, or give our office a call at 405-310-4333.
Right. Or you can subscribe to our podcast channel on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn as well. That's John Veely, CEO of OnlineVisas.com. I'm Dave Kelso. Thanks for watching this episode of the OnlineVisas.com, The Immigration Show.
Thanks a lot. See you next time.